Hi, everyone. My name is Sally Hayes, and I'm the founder of Matricos, which is a directory of fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum providers and brands. And we are here today with Dr. Liesel Orend, who is a chiropractor and an acupuncturist in South Bay, California. Hey, Liesel, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk to you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in the work you do? And also maybe a little bit about how you balance chiropractic and acupuncture care.
Okay. So I have always been interested in the healing arts from a very young age, but I reached a certain point around 35 or 40 where I decided it was going to be my profession. One of my biggest inspirations is my son. He developed autism shortly after age 2, and we had to learn everything in order to sort of pull him forward and bring him to where he is today, which is a college graduate. So that process of having to learn basically everything in order to help him really inspired me. And that's really what made me study as many things as I have, because I didn't feel that one path would be enough. So I've studied a lot.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. And so these days, what that gives me is the opportunity to really tailor my services to the patient's needs. So I have a lot of different choices. I have so many different tools. I have manual skills, I have acupuncture skills, I have all kinds of things. So when somebody comes to me, I can look and I can say, I think this is exactly what you might need. And even if we try it and it's not right, we have other choices. So it gives me a lot of flexibility, which I love.
I think that's so fantastic. And I know you do chiropractic work and you do acupuncture work and you do craniosacral work as well, and you focus on pediatrics. So, can you tell us how soon you would see a baby? Are you seeing them directly from the hospital? Are you seeing them when they're 2 years old? When is kind of the age that you see them?
I can see a baby anytime. I know that there are people out there who will say bring the baby by on the way home from the hospital, but I actually prefer the baby stays home and bonds with mom and everybody has a chance to be together, unless there's a problem. And those people know, those moms and dads know who they are, right? So if maybe it was a really traumatic birth, maybe the baby's struggling in some way, those babies I will see right away. But otherwise, I say that, let things settle, see where things are, give the baby a chance to find their way, and then we can come in, then have, bring them in.
Once the baby settles,
Mhm.
what kind of signs would you be looking at that they could potentially need to come see you?
So some of the most common things, trouble nursing, right? And I work in connection with lactation consultants all the time. So sometimes the nursing problem is an issue with how to get the baby to latch and the sort of the bond between mom and baby. But sometimes there's a structural issue with the baby's mouth, with the baby's jaw. Those kinds of things are things where my work can be really, really helpful. So I would definitely suggest coming in for that. Other things that come up, torticollis, if the baby's head is tilted to one side, or if the baby's head is not shaped, that doesn't spring back after birth, it's uneven in some way, colic, discomfort, and sometimes just a very tense baby. Like if there's a lot of stress, if the baby seems unhappy, unsettled, that kind of thing. I do like to check a baby, even if everything's going great, just to make sure everything is lining up structurally for them. But those are kinds of things that tend to bring parents in.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure it sounds a little wild that you would bring your baby in for a chiropractic adjustment or for acupuncture. Can you let us know, are you putting needles in babies? Are you doing chiropractic adjustments as we're seeing on TikTok? What's the work that you really do?
There's a lot of misconception about that. So first of all, chiropractic adjustments on a baby is just touching and holding a point. Sometimes parents actually wonder if I'm doing anything at all. There is absolutely no twisting nor cracking of anything. That doesn't happen in my office. Um, and in most any chiropractor, by the way, who's trained in pediatrics is not going to be going for an osseous adjustment where you hear it pop. It's just not going to happen. The baby's bones aren't formed yet. We all know that. And so the way of working is much more soft and respectful of the baby. Um, always. Acupuncture, I tend not to use many needles for babies once in a blue moon, but mostly I will use acupressure points or different technologies, different like scraping or tapping just to sort of raise the energy level of the baby. It's not my go-to with babies, but there are cases like, for example, if a baby is really weak and not thriving, that's where the acupuncture mindset really comes in and helps lift the baby up and get things going better.
And do you explain to parents what it is that you're doing and the philosophy behind this? Are you educating parents about traditional Chinese medicine or the ways of chiropractic?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important part of it, especially if they're wondering what it is that I'm doing. So, but I will explain exactly what I see, even if it seems complicated. I have models in my office of baby skulls and adult skulls, and I will explain the cranium and how it's working and where I see the imbalance and what exactly I'm doing. And also, my new project is that I'm offering a lot of classes for parents. So we are just had our first craniosacral techniques for parents class, and everybody really enjoyed that. So we're going to do it again,
Awesome.
um, as well as a class in Eastern medicine techniques like acupressure and cupping. So this could work for babies, but also for kids. And these are things that you can do at home to work with your kids that it might be alongside having professional support, might be stuff you just do on your own. It's not the same as bringing your baby in to see me, but it can be a really good support, especially for kids that need sort of a higher level of intervention than we could reasonably provide in the office. Say they need treatment every day. You're not going to want to bring your child into me every day, but there are things you can do at home to support the process.
That's very cool. So this seems like a very integrated way to raise your children, especially if they have extra needs. And you had told us in the beginning that this was something that you kind of came to because of your son. I'm
Right.
curious, what types of things, if you could give a general one, two, three types for parents at home to work with their kids, what are kind of the top three things that you would suggest
For them to do at home?
for them to do at home with their kids?
Gosh, it depends on the kid, right? So if you have a very anxious child, a stressed child, or a hyper child, or a tense child, I really think that the craniosacral therapy is the way to go. So learning some basic techniques in that will help you. It gives you an in and a way to connect and help regulate and settle your child's nervous system. That's pretty effective. So that's a very useful thing to know. Chinese medicine is, I think of it, especially if you have a kid who gets sick all the time, is a little weak, um, has asthma, right? Or other kinds of issues like that. Those kinds of things, I think more of acupuncture or acupressure to help build the chi, build the energy up, build the health. So these things are not mutually exclusive. You could have all of these tools in your toolkit and you might use them at different times. What you're going to do when your child has a cold is going to be different than what you do when they're having meltdowns or unable to sleep, right? But they're all great tools to have.
That's really cool, especially, the one thing I hear from parents all the time is like, well, we put them in daycare or they went to school and now they come home sick all the time. So
Right.
to have something that supports the system, especially if you had a child who maybe doesn't have as robust of an immune system that you could support at home is amazing. So these classes that you're doing, are you doing these in person or virtual? And if they are in person, where are you hosting these?
Right now they're in person, but we are hoping to move to virtual classes. So right now our next class is May 18th in Redondo Beach, and that's for craniosacral therapy or craniosacral techniques, excuse me, for parents. And then the Eastern medicine will be June 29th, also in Redondo Beach.
That's such a great resource for parents. I love that you're doing that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I would like to hear a little bit more about the age range. So I know you want the baby to go home and settle. That totally makes sense. I'm wondering, um, how old do you see? I mean, do you see at, 1 to 99? Do you see all adults and kids? Or do you only exclusively see children?
No, I see 0 to 99. I see everybody and everyone in between. And the ages, it depends. So I see a lot of children as well. And these are often children with maybe issues around anxiety or sleep, sometimes bedwetting. Um, and I see also lots of children with special needs, but I also see kids who are doing great and have, twisted their elbow or something in sports. So I'm able to help with those kinds of things too. I also see people who are struggling with posture of all ages, but this is especially useful for kids and teens. So it's a good time to start working on those things as we all spend way too much time on our screens. And the posture of kids is looking worse earlier than it used to. So if we get this in the habit and in the mindset earlier for kids, it really helps a lot. So that's one thing I work with teenagers too.
That's really smart, especially these backpacks these kids are wearing too.
Right.
They're too heavy for me to carry. I don't know how these they look like they're just going to fall directly backwards.
Yep.
So how do kids react with getting this type of service? Are they curious about it? Are they skeptical about it? Do they love it? Do they hate it?
Um, for the most part, they love it. Some takes them a little longer than others. My office is one big room, and we have all kinds of interesting things. We have skeleton bones for them to look at and models. There are airplanes on the ceiling for them to look at while they're being treated. We have great toys to pick out and play with if they want to have something in their hands. So it's a very welcoming space. It feels like you're going to someone's house instead of to a medical office. So, and sometimes it takes the child a little while to sort of get used to the space or understand what's going to happen, and that's fine. Sometimes we may need a few sessions before we're able to really work. But other times it just happens right away. Kids can feel, especially the cranial work, they can feel it. I asked a young man what he was feeling like. What does this feel like to you? And he said it's like floating on water, So you could really um
That's
but
quite a good review, and that's quite a departure from what you see sometimes with chiropractic and acupuncture, right? Like I hear that a lot. I'm scared of getting adjusted because
Mhm.
you see these big cracks, that people are doing. But really, the work that you're doing, and especially chiropractic care and acupuncture care, is a much more of a full spectrum
It
care.
is, and particularly for me, it is. I mean, my world, those are my two licenses, right? My professional licenses. So that's what people understand in terms of putting my work into a category. But my study of manual therapy is broad. So I have spent a long time looking at visceral manipulation or how to manipulate the organs, cranial work, also neural manipulation, how to work directly with nerves, and all kinds of other pieces. So that is woven with everything that I do. And I go back and forth pretty fluidly between people who need really a lot of pressure to make a physical structural change and people who can't tolerate that. And so therefore we work on the nerves, for example, with a very soft touch. So it changes for me based on who I'm working with.
It seems like all of that background really informs you to work with the whole person.
Exactly.
I love that. I think it's so interesting that you chose to do both things because most people specialize in one or the other. But also that you've done a lot of visceral manipulation and craniosacral. And I think that's so important. But the other piece that I really find fascinating about you is you're really educating the parents as well.
Yes.
And could you tell us why it's so important to educate the parents on these philosophies as they're raising their children?
Um, Gosh, many reasons, but I think the biggest that comes to my mind is that I have been there, right? So I had a child who was typically developing and then disappeared. Language went away, function went away, and we had to work for many, many years to bring all of that back and to get to the end point where we have a almost a functional adult, you know? Um, and so I really understand what it is to do the work and to figure these things out and to go back and forth and try to figure out what's going to work. And I know that it can be exhausting for parents to try to figure that out. So I do want to talk to them about all of the choices and options that they have, whatever it is that they're dealing with. Um, and so I'm very broad in that way. I want parents to have the tools. I don't want parents to feel powerless. I want them to understand that they can make a change in their child's life and that the changes they make will be important. So that's really where I'm coming from. I don't want to take away the power or say that I'm the only one who knows, or that I would never say anything like that. Your child will, needs to come see me, that kind of stuff. I know how that felt to me when I was the parent dealing with the child with needs. And so I would never want that to be how I relate to a parent now. It's also about respecting their choices.
So you have the experience and you have the education and you understand the shoes that a lot of parents are in. And
Yeah.
that seems like that informs a lot of your work and gives you definitely a different perspective than a lot of providers out there.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Although there are more. I will say that. So my son is now 23, and you couldn't find providers who understood what we were going through then, but now you can. And many, many parents of kids, especially those with different kinds of needs, have gone on to become therapists or doctors or physical therapists or occupational therapists or something. So it's not so rare as it used to be.
I love that. I love to hear everyone's story about how they came to their work because often there is a story, exactly what you're saying, that somebody had an experience and that led them to dive into this deep education to support not only their family, but other families, which I
Yeah.
think is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Can you tell everybody where to find you?
Sure. You can find me on the web at www.orendhealingarts.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Orend Healing Arts. And I'm in Redondo Beach, North Redondo on Artesia between Blossom and Green.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I love your story and I love hearing everything, and I learned something new, which I always love.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, take care.